Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight. Well, first reported in the United Kingdom. Now a COVID XC variant case found in Mumbai, says the Bombay Municipal Corporation. They say the XC variant was found in a 50-year-old woman who's asymptomatic and vaccinated. She had travelled from South Africa. However, there is confusion as the centre says there's no confirmation whether this is a case of the XC variant. Remember, the World Health Organization says the XC variant could be 10% more transmissible than Omicron BA.2 variant. The Prime Minister, speaking today at the BJP's Foundation Day, says the world divided in two camps, but India stands firm on its national interests. In Parliament, the Foreign Minister says India wants Russia's president and Ukraine's president to meet and says India can help. Massive celebrations of the BJP's 42nd Foundation Day by the party across the country. The Prime Minister says again that two kinds of politics, Rashtra Bhakti of the BJP versus Parivar Bhakti of other parties. The BJP president also meets heads of foreign missions as the BJP says it's the world's largest political party. Meanwhile, Pawar played his meeting with the Prime Minister today for 20 minutes sparked speculation. But Sharad Pawar, after that in a briefing, says the Maharashtra alliance is one. We will fight the next elections together, and says, I brought up with the Prime Minister how the enforcement directorate is being used against our leaders. It's injustice. Meanwhile, in the opposition, who will be the BJP's main challenger? AAP is in overdrive. Gujarat on the weekend, Himachal Pradesh today. Chief Minister Kejriwal, both states will face elections this year. Kejriwal's roadshow in Himachal Pradesh in the Chief Minister's constituency. Meanwhile, the 14th fuel price hike today in 16 days. The impact on the Aam Aadmi. Ask the people what 10 rupees per litre price hike in petrol means for them. Sri Lanka's currency is now the worst performing globally as the crisis continues. 304 Sri Lankan rupees is now equal to $1. Well, our lead story tonight, has India's first case of the COVID variant XC been reported in Mumbai? So, Sohit, we've got details what the Bombay Municipal Corporation has just put out. Tell us about that. A 50-year-old woman is apparently got this variant of COVID, the XC variant.
Well, that's right, Sonia. In fact, on 10th of February, this woman returned from South Africa, and on 27th of February, as per the information given by the BMC, she was tested positive and her sample was sent for genome sequencing at Kasturba Hospital, the central laboratory for genome sequencing. And in this laboratory, it was found out that the new XC variant was found out in the initial sequencing. This is what the Maharashtra government is saying as of now. And GISAID, which is a global science initiative, has also confirmed that this is an XC variant. However, INSASOC, that is a forum that was set up by the Ministry of Health, has decided to go for another round of genome sequencing. But as of now, what we can say is that the BMC officials are calling this as a new variant of XC. I also spoke to Additional Municipal Commissioner Suresh Kakani. He says that this was detected almost 2 months ago, and the close contacts were also tested. High-risk contacts were also tested. As of now, there is nothing to worry. My big question was, since now there has been a lot of relaxation given, like even if you see behind me, there are people without mask because now mask is not compulsory. He said as of now, that will continue, and if the cases rise in the coming days, only then there will be other decisions taken.
The patient who tested positive having foreign travel history, we put the patient sample for genome sequencing, and that genome sequencing along with the 230 samples, out of 230, 228 are found to be having a BA2, Omicron BA2 variant, and one having Kappa and the one having XC. As per the WHO's guidelines and WHO's indications, the BA2 and XC are at par so far as the spreadability is concerned. So as of now, there is nothing to worry about. This patient got infected 2 months back, got recovered in 2 or 3 days time. His close contact and high risk contact also, safe. They are not infected.
Right. So let's go across now to Dr. Shashank Joshi, who joins me, is of course a part of the COVID task force of Maharashtra. Dr. Joshi, so we're hearing there this patient was actually infected 2 months ago, and there's still some confusion over whether she actually had the XC variant. Is this something to worry about?
So we need to be vigilant. So as we progress in the post-COVID era, Sonia, we need to be vigilant both for genomic surveillance and sentinel surveillance. That has to continue. Recombinants can often be contaminants also, which is why the INSACOG is redoing the FASTQ test files, and they are saying that they want to confirm it beyond reasonable doubt, and that has not been confirmed. Having said that, we need to be vigilant because these 600 plus cases of XE have been reported from UK, but even the UK data, which came in the last week of March, says that the transmissibility or its clinical relevance is unknown. In virus evolution, we know when the virus evolves, clearly it gets a little more contagious, but it gets less virulent. So it becomes more like a cold or a flu. Only in the vulnerable groups, we have to be more careful, like elderly, etc. So I think now that we have relaxed all the curbs, it is mandatory to ensure that indoor masking, particularly in people who are immunocompromised, needs to be appropriately followed, and some COVID appropriate behavior in crowded, closed indoor spaces where there is poor ventilation needs to be maintained. So that is the only thing which we need to be vigilant of. Yes, this patient completely recovered. So from this patient, I think there is no need to generate a panic. Only the report was out today. However, this patient was, there almost 4 weeks back, as your reporter has rightly pointed out.
So I think that's an important point you're making, Dr. Joshi, that be vigilant, because for many people it's almost as if COVID has ended. But given the Omicron experience and the point you're making that its impact actually becomes less and less, hopefully there's no need to go back to strict curbs or no need to go back to strict lockdowns. It's good that children are back in schools. We shouldn't be looking at bringing masks as mandatory again.
So I think indoor masking is something which is necessary. We will have to have voluntary vaccination to continue. But vaccination as well as masking should be a health habit, and people need to voluntarily participate in it. Now I think the onus is more on people at large, and they need to be motivated to do it as a health habit. We have seen this in Japan, we have seen this in Asia predominantly, where masking is a health habit, where flu pandemics come and go. So I think it's important that we also inculcate this habit.
That point you made on vaccination, because doctor, a question so many are asking is what about boosters? Because so many people, and this studies across the world have shown that the vaccination immunity wears off after 6 to 8 months. And so many Indians are actually in that phase now, but there's no decision yet on booster doses. Would you push for boosters at this time?
So the data on Indian subcontinent as far as boosters is concerned is awaited. Secondly, right now we are awaiting from Mumbai at least the Sero survey. The Sero survey report should be out next week. And we know that both there has been a large exposure and 100% vaccination. And therefore, currently, at least for next 3 to 6 months, it is not needed, except for vulnerable groups, healthcare workers, frontline workers. Right. But even for general population, that data in the next 3 to 6 months, we will need an additional dose probably.
Right. Dr. Joshi, thank you so much for, I think, really your calm perspective. No need to panic. It's another variant, but hopefully the impact will not be widespread. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Joshi. Let's just go across to the other big political headlines. Well, the BJP celebrated its 42nd Foundation Day as it's getting biggest, as it's definitely the dominant political force currently in India. The Prime Minister, addressing BJP workers across the country, made the point that this year is special because it's the 75th year of independence. He also pointed out that this has now established two types of politics: national politics versus dynasty politics.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी के लिए हमेशा ये मंत्र रहा है कि व्यक्ति से बड़ा दल और दल से बड़ा देश।
भारत माता की वंदे।
Celebrations at the BJP headquarters on the 42nd Foundation Day of Bharatiya Janata Party. BJP President JP Nadda also carried out Shobha Yatra in Delhi. The BJP reminding its workers and supporters of this 42-year journey with this promotional tweet.
मैं ये भविष्यवाणी करने का साहस करता हूं, अंधेरा छटेगा, सूरज निकलेगा, कमल खिलेगा.
Featuring Atal Bihari Vajpayee, recounting the journey of the party from its foundation in 1980 to becoming what it calls largest political party in the world.
भारतीय
Prime Minister Narendra Modi virtually addressed party workers across the country, highlighting the achievements of the party.
कश्मीर से कन्याकुमारी, कच्छ से कोहिमा तक भाजपा एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत के संकल्प को निरंतर सशक्त कर रही है.
But it was this important message to his workers that caught a lot of attention. Amid the crisis in Ukraine and criticism from the West on India's choices, Prime Minister claiming that national interest must be paramount.
जब पूरी दुनिया दो विरोधी ध्रुवों में बटी हो, तब भारत को एक ऐसे देश के रूप में देखा जा रहा है जो दृढ़ता के साथ मानवता की बात कर सकता है. हमारी सरकार राष्ट्रीय हितों को सर्वोपरि रखते हुए काम कर रही है.
Earlier in the day, India silenced criticism from Western nations like the US, who called the country's response to the Russia-Ukraine war as shaky. Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar condemning the war in the most unambiguous terms. Back in the party headquarters, party chief JP Nadda met with envoys of 13 countries. A political dig at the opposition too completed the day.
अभी भी देश में दो तरह की राजनीति चल रही है. एक राजनीति है परिवार भक्ति की और दूसरी है राष्ट्र भक्ति की. इन परिवारवादी पार्टियों ने देश के युवाओं को भी कभी आगे नहीं बढ़ने दिया. उनके साथ हमेशा विश्वासघात किया है.
From having just 2 members of parliament in 1984 to now having over 300 in Lok Sabha and over 100 members of parliament in Rajya Sabha, the rise of BJP has been phenomenal. And while right now the Bharatiya Janata Party is stronger than ever, a rise of regional parties, a growing anti-incumbency and issues like inflation and unemployment are threatening the hegemony of the Saffron Party. And the road to 2024 for the BJP may not be as easy as it seems right now. With camera person Sushil Rathi, I'm Akshay Dongre for NDTV.
Well, moving to the big news from Parliament today, the Foreign Minister spoke on the whole Ukraine crisis and India's stand in a strong address. The Foreign Minister said that India does want the presidents of Russia and Ukraine to meet, that India is on the side of peace and is ready to help in any manner to make this meeting happen.
Even the security of the nation is at stake as we maintain our defense posture in the manner that the current security challenges warrant. All these, Speaker Sir, are legitimate pursuits of national interest by India. They are similar to what other nations are doing from their particular perspective. Attributing a political coloring to it is uncalled for, it is unfair. I do not even wish to get into which country is doing how much. Eventually, the numbers will speak for themselves. We encourage talks between Ukraine and Russia, including at the level of their presidents. Prime Minister has spoken to them both himself in this regard. This was precisely the message that was conveyed to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov when he was in Delhi. If India can be of any assistance in this matter, we will be glad to contribute.
So the Foreign Minister speaking there, but the latest from that Russian invasion as another town is recaptured by Ukrainian forces. Vishnu has the latest on this breaking news. Vishnu, what do we know?
Well, this, Sonia, could in fact be the next horror story, and that's a huge worry. It's a town called Borodyanka near Kiev. And remember, just in the last couple of days, there's been a town called Bucha which has been liberated. This is now the town of Borodyanka which has been liberated. Take a look at this footage. This is drone footage, video footage of this town being completely destroyed, as you can see. And therefore, the big question is this another mass grave? Are there going to be massive casualties in this area? And the answer is, at the moment, we don't know. But Ukrainian authorities say there is a lot of rubble over here. And underneath the rubble, there's a real fear that many people could, in fact, be trapped over there or be dead under that rubble. As this entire situation changes, and you can see some of the devastation over there, we are going to be getting many more, sadly, horrific stories from Ukraine, areas from where the Russians have actually withdrawn. These are the areas which were full of people. What's happened to them, we should be knowing in the days ahead.
Thanks, Vishnu. Really, the first images emerging of the devastation of that war from yet another town in Ukraine. We'll keep updating you on that story. But let's just go across to what the other big headlines are. And of course, today, political speculation over a meeting between the Prime Minister and NCP Supremo Sharad Pawar, also, of course, the architect and the mainstay of the Maharashtra alliance. This coming at a time when leader after leader of that alliance has been raided or arrested by the Enforcement Directorate.
A relentless onslaught by the centre's investigating agencies against Maharashtra's state ministers and leaders, now brought to the Prime Minister by political stalwart Sharad Pawar, the architect of the Maha Alliance. Though with his ability to keep all sides guessing, it's also speculated he's the man who can bring it crashing down if he switches sides. In a 20-minute meeting in Parliament with the Prime Minister, Mr. Pawar said he raised the latest provocation of the ED attaching Vocal Sena MP Sanjay Raut's properties worth crores. This as Mr. Pawar's own party has two ministers, ex-Home Minister Anil Deshmukh and Minister Nawab Malik, currently in jail.
ये सेंट्रल एजेंसी ने उठाए हैं, ये कदम है उनका फ्लैट और इनसे आधा एकड़ जमीन वो अटैच की है. हमें लगा कि ये इंजस्टिस है. स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट will complete its tenure and this government in next election will go collectively.
In Raut's case, the agency alleges that his wife received 83 lakhs from property dealers and real estate developers 12 years ago, which was used to buy these properties. The agency calls this the proceeds of crime.
वो मिट जाएंगे लेकिन हम नहीं झुकेंगे. किसी भी सूटर में चाहे कुछ भी कर ले. क्या करेंगे? जेल में डालेंगे ना. उनके हाथ में और क्या है? जेल में डालेंगे. या सुबह मैं वॉक को जाता हूँ अर्ली इन द मॉर्निंग, तो हरिन पंडा जैसे हमको गोली मार देंगे. और क्या करेंगे? उनके हाथ में क्या है? हम नहीं, वो हमको पहचानते नहीं और पहचानते हैं इसलिए सब चल रहा है.
अगर ये कार्रवाई हो रही है तो हम लोग कोर्ट जाएंगे. हमारा न्यायालय पर पूरा विश्वास है. लेकिन जब ईडी डॉक्यूमेंट्री एविडेंस के आधार पर, ट्रांजैक्शंस के आधार पर और डिजिटल फुटप्रिंट के आधार पर कोई कार्रवाई करती है तो ईडी को कोसा जाता है. ये एक प्रकार की इनकी रणनीति है. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि उन्होंने ही शुड कम क्लीन.
From Abhishek Banerjee in West Bengal to Sanjay Rawat in Maharashtra and Satyendra Jain in Delhi, the central agencies are targeting the prominent leaders of these three states. While the opposition parties say that BJP is misusing the central agencies to target political opponents, the agencies say that the actions are based on evidence. With camera person Joseph, this is Arvind Kejriwal for NDTV.
Well, AAP Satyendra Jain, who also has his properties attached by the Enforcement Directorate yesterday, is busy with campaigning because Arvind Kejriwal has begun the Himachal campaign for the party as AAP has ambitious plans to go national after its success in Punjab. So Arvind Kejriwal was in Gujarat this weekend, in Himachal Pradesh today with a giant roadshow in the Chief Minister's constituency. Remember, both Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh face elections this November.
Arvind Kejriwal taking on the BJP, borrowing from its playbook. After a landslide victory in Punjab, the Aam Aadmi Party launched its mission Himachal with the Delhi Chief Minister and Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann leading a roadshow in Mandi district, which is home of the BJP Chief Minister. The party has never contested in the small state before.
हिमाचल वालों, इस बार बारी हिमाचल प्रदेश की है. चाबी आपके हाथ में है. दिल्ली और पंजाब के लोगों ने करके दिखा दिया. इस बार क्रांति हिमाचल प्रदेश में. आप सब लोग इतनी भारी संख्या में आए, मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि आने वाले चुनाव के अंदर हिमाचल प्रदेश दिल्ली और पंजाब के रिकॉर्ड भी तोड़ेगा, उससे भी ज्यादा सीटें लेके आएगा.
The Aam Aadmi Party strategically scheduled the rally for today, which is the foundation day of the BJP. Firm on its ambition of national expansion, The Kejriwal-led party tried to send a clear message to the BJP and the Congress about its emerging as a strong alternative.
हिमाचल प्रदेश के अंदर पिछले 40 साल से एक फ्रेंडली मैच चल रहा है। एक बारी कांग्रेस आती है, वो हार जाती है तो बीजेपी आ जाती है, बीजेपी हारती है तो कांग्रेस आ जाती है और दोनों बड़े कॉन्फिडेंट हैं। अब पहली बारी आम आदमी पार्टी आ गई है, इन दोनों का खेल खराब कर दिया है। जो उनका फ्रेंडली मैच था उसको हमने खत्म कर दिया है।
Even though no big face from the BJP or the Congress joined the Aam Aadmi Party, on the occasion there were large crowds.
हमारे प्रदेश की जनता है इन दोनों पार्टियों तंग आ चुकी है और इस बार आम आदमी पार्टी की सरकार बनेगी और बनेगी।
सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा तो महंगाई है। आज की डेट में अगर पूरे देश में देखें और हिमाचल में देखें तो महंगाई सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा है, क्योंकि जो पी मार्क का तेल 90 रुपए का मिलता था आज अप्रॉक्सिमेट 200 रुपए में मिल रहा है। और पेट्रोल की बात करें तो जो 95 का था आज 103-105 रुपए का है। तो महंगाई सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा है। साथ में एजुकेशन में भी बहुत जरूरत है काम करने की। और केजरीवाल गवर्नमेंट ने जो काम किया है पंजाब और दिल्ली में, हम चाहते हैं कि हिमाचल में आम आदमी की पार्टी सरकार बने और यहाँ पे हम एजुकेशन पे काम करें।
Aam Aadmi Party didn't fight the 2017 assembly polls in Himachal Pradesh, but they are going to test their luck in the Shimla Municipal Corporation elections to be held in couple of months from now. In Mandi, Mohammad Ghazali for NDTV.
And forget politics. That is what the Aam Aadmi is saying. Let's talk about fuel prices and inflation. Today, as there was a 14th fuel price hike in 16 days, we're looking at the impact of this on small families, people who are delivery boys. How are they actually changing their lives because of these daily hikes?
"35-year-old Tawfiq Tahir Khan delivers food for Zomato, riding for about 100 kilometers each day. He says he has to put in about 350 rupees of his own for petrol, since what his company pays is not enough.
एवरी डे मुझे कम से कम 100 किलोमीटर चलाना पड़ता और जेब से एवरी डे मुझे 350 प्लस मुझे जेब से डालना एक्स्ट्रा।
Sarvesh Soni, who runs a bike for Uber Moto, says the company pays 5 rupees per kilometer.
कंपनी पहले भी जितना दे रही है अभी भी उतना ही दे रही है। कंपनी का कुछ बड़ा नहीं है।
कितने रुपए आपको मिलते थे पहले? कितने रुपए आपको मिलते थे?
5 रुपए पर किलोमीटर देती है कंपनी।
अच्छा।
और पेट्रोल का दाम इतने बढ़ गया है, 30 की अभी गाड़ी 5 में कैसे पड़ रहा है हम लोग को हम ही देखते हैं।
After going from auto owner to just a driver during the first lockdown, Mahendra is now unable to cope with the rising fuel prices.
पहले का जो भाड़ा था उसमें हम लोग को नहीं पहुंचाता है और इसलिए थोड़ा खितिर पितिर होता है पैसेंजर का सर, हर रोज ही होता है। घर में तो चलना मुश्किल हो गया, भाड़ा वाड़ा भी नहीं है, तेल का दाम तो हर रोज बढ़ता है।
Swapnil, an HR professional, has stopped using his car. He now uses a scooter to commute the 30 kilometer to work.
It is quite difficult for us to, put up a proper budget with including the petrol. Even the LPG, if I'm not wrong, recently it has crossed 1,000 mark.
Nagarajan, a mechanical engineer from rural Tamil Nadu, is struggling to find a job and says his only option is a cycle.
பாசிக்கு வண்டி ஓட்டுற இன்ட்ரெஸ்டே இல்லை, சைக்கிளை எடுத்துட்டு நம்ம வீட்டிலே இருக்கலாம்னு இருக்கிறோம், ஏதோ ஒரு வேலையை பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கலாம்னு இருக்கிறோம்.
Before elections, the DMK had promised a 5 rupee cut in petrol price, but so far it has brought it down only by 3 rupees a litre. While there is pressure to reduce the price further, the DMK says the ball is now at the centre's court, which earns more from cess and other taxes. Not just the common man, the wild rise in fuel prices is affecting even the smallest businesses. With Pooja Bharadwaj in Mumbai, Ratnadeep in Guwahati, in Chennai with Suresh, Sam Daniel, Find TV.
Well, another breaking news just coming in. We're talking about fuel prices. In Sri Lanka, the situation is even worse. There are long queues, there's no fuel available, And just this evening, India has now sent a 36,000 metric ton consignment of petrol to Lanka and also 40,000 metric tons of Delhi to Sri Lanka. Amid that crisis, the sale of diesel had been stopped a few days ago. India's total fuel assistance to Sri Lanka is now 270,000 metric tons. This comes as there's been another crash in the Sri Lankan rupee. It's now plummeted to a record low. In fact, it's currently the worst performing currency in the world. The selling rate of $1 has now reached 304 Sri Lankan rupees for the first time. Shija is in Sri Lanka and here she reports on what actually the value of the Sri Lankan rupee is today. It's the worst it's ever been.
A soaring inflation and a weakening currency has has shot up the basic essentials as far as rice is concerned, sugar and also fuel as far as the Sri Lanka, the island country is concerned. Now we're talking about the inflation which has shot up anywhere between 35 to 37, increase in especially the inflation. And also if you're talking about 1 kg of rice that we're looking at, it's been priced anywhere between 290 rupees to 300 rupees, which was at least about costing 100 or so just about 2 to 3 weeks ago, just before March. And if you're talking about other basic essentials, including sugar, which is overpriced at nearly 300 rupees, was being sold at nearly anywhere between 110 to 120 rupees just before March. So this, as far as the inflation, at the same time, the weakening currency. Now remember, Sri Lanka is also looking at the worst currency crisis is concerned, because it's reporting in its history as far as the currency of Sri Lanka, which is the going rate of $1 we are looking at is between 310 rupees to 312. This is for the very first time in the history of Sri Lanka. We're looking at where the rupees, Sri Lankan rupees, has completely weakened. In Chennai, with camera person Govind Murthy, Shrija for NDTV.